Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. How do you like this lighting here? I'm playing around with different things, buying different lights, trying different things out. This is not bad. It's not perfect, but it's not bad, okay? So in this video today, I want to talk about mostly men, but this could be for women too. You know, I was recently asked from a client of mine. He said, hey, what do you think are my biggest weaknesses? This was actually like 6 months ago, but deciding to make a video on it now. He said, what do you think are my biggest weaknesses? And I actually made him a bit of like a Canva presentation where I explained some things for him. And I want to explain these things to you guys as well because they are missing gaps in a lot of people's consciousness. People aren't quite understanding the pitfalls in 2025. Being a man, being maybe a powerful man, being maybe a rich man, there are many pitfalls, okay? And that is what we're going to talk about today, okay? So this particular individual had gone on TRT, okay, which is a testosterone replacement therapy, and he was taking like HGH and a few other things. And the thing about men, okay, and let me just share my screen here, is that men are generally speaking, are very addicted to strength. Okay, not only men, but most people. They're addicted to strength. They're addicted to feeling strong, okay, and feeling in control. And the other side of the spectrum of strength is sensitivity. You may even also call this vulnerability. But when a man goes too much in the arena of strength, he becomes untrustable. Okay, so you look at someone like David Goggins, who's deep in the strength pillar. There's something a little bit untrustable and unsafe about him. If you're in his presence, you don't feel like your nervous system's settling in. Not that I've ever been in his presence, but I'm sure that people who are close to him, or maybe even his kids, who knows? I'm just generalizing here. I don't know him personally, and he's just an example of an archetype. You know, maybe they would be afraid. Or even like if you look at Liver King, when, you know, Liver King's documentary, if you saw that, his kids were very clearly afraid, or it was almost like having a military dictator as a father. And so, yes, they are trustable in one way because they get shit done and you'd want them on your side for war, and, you know, they're no BS. But on a full, complete nervous system level, generally speaking, these people are not fully trustable. And if you're a leader, you're too strong, you're also not trustable. Okay, so sensitivity, the spectrum here of strength and sensitivity, is very, very important for a man to understand. If you are too sensitive, you end up actually becoming too emotional, too weak, and, you know, too vulnerable and spilling out your beans all the time. That's not very trustable. If you're too strong, it's also not trustable. So there's a middle ground where you are acknowledging your weaknesses, acknowledging your vulnerabilities, you're owning them, you work on them consciously, but you choose to be in a pillar of strength while you're living. You're not going to be a victim, or you're not going to be in process all the time. And you're not going to let your sensitivities essentially run the show. But when you ignore your sensitivities completely and just blatantly push through, which, by the way, TRT is just one example of something that allows men to do that. So when you take TRT, you can just push through your limits, push through your boundaries. That's what any performance enhancing drugs do. And then you actually dull yourself down. You remove your sensitivities. And that in and of itself is going to have a cost. Okay, that'll have a long-term cost, of course. The other thing that men do is they get addicted to power. Okay, power and truth. These are two spectrums: strength, sensitivity, power, and truth, that almost like an interface that men have to understand where they are in that spectrum and how they can stay balanced and how they can create relationships and structures and systems that keep them in check. Okay, again, you get too addicted to strength, TRT, HGH, pumping. You ignore your sensitivities, you lose trustability, you lose your North Star, and you will eventually have a collapse, okay? Another spectrum, power and truth. So I'm going to give an example here of like an Andrew Tate, who's a very, very powerful and strong man. Now, on the spectrum of sensitivity and truth, I would argue he's debilitatingly off. Debilitating. It's almost abrasive to watch. Sensitivity and truth, right? So what does it look like when someone's addicted to power? Well, power, see, when look, in this world, guys, in this day and age, when you are a entrepreneur and you're a figure and you're making millions of dollars and you have yes men all around you and you're standing in front of your screen, right? Like I'm one of these people. Damn, now that I say this, I'm realizing I'm one of them, right? But you don't get true, genuine feedback about how you show up in the world. It is very skewed because everyone around you has something to gain by being in your presence, or they're your employees. It's very rare for someone in a position of deep power to have someone who's giving them genuine reflection, okay? And someone who's being really, really truthful with them. And what happens is people get addicted to power. There's a difference between power and truth. Power is usually flavored with something. There's an intoxication with power. You look at Andrew Tate and he's got so much power, the things he says, and people, excuse me, I'm not going to edit that out. The people, the intoxication, you got people who are just eating up his every word, and a whole young generation who are just eating it up. And he commands respect, he commands attention. But the things he's saying are not connected to love. When you have power, you lose love and you lose truth, you lose humility, okay? Because truth, like the emperor has no clothing, this is the perfect example of power and truth. The story goes that basically, the emperor actually, I don't even know the full story, but basically it's like the emperor has no clothes and everyone is telling him that he's wearing clothes, but the emperor is standing there naked. And because they're so afraid of his power, they're so afraid of what he's going to do or how he could punish them or how he could change their life negatively. And so they don't tell him the truth. And so this spectrum, you see it more and more in this day and age on Instagram and on social media, where these men are seduced by power. Conor McGregor, another perfect example. So much power, so much intoxication. And I guess I can switch to this camera angle. So much power, so much intoxication, and no one to keep him in check. Truth is more grounded. Truth means it doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter how much power you have. It doesn't matter. There's basic human law, which is that you're not better than anyone. Okay? And so truth is, it's like when you get successful, this thing starts pumping, your ego, your whatever you want to call it. There's something that starts pumping. And if you don't have the skill set of grounding yourself while you're winning, it will pop. Just look at Conor McGregor. It has popped multiple times. Look at Liver King. It's popped multiple times. Look at these male figures who get addicted to strength and to power. It's not sustainable because there's human law. The human law states that you have limitations. And there's just this natural earthly law of what goes up must come down. So while you're traveling in a really successful way, you have to learn how to stay anchored and grounded. That is basically knowing that you're not better than anyone. Nothing matters. None of the money, none of the fame, none of the success. It doesn't matter. It's nice to have, but it's not the North Star. And then you have to get clear with yourself and with God and with Creator about what that middle zone looks like for you, what that walk feels like. And that's how you remain on a sustainable path. That's how I've been doing this for 10 years. And again, I'm not saying I'm anything like these guys in terms of strength or power, but the point is that as a man, you want to make sure you have checks and balances between the spectrum of strength and sensitivity. You don't want to be lying to yourself, and power and truth. And if you get too intoxicated with power, you lose the ability to see clearly. You lose the ability to be on level ground. Okay, this is really, really important for sustainability. All right. The other thing that I want to share with you guys is that When you get to the next level, you will have new problems, new levels, new devils. Life doesn't just get easy, okay? That's actually not the way life is supposed to be. As you grow and as you scale and as you get bigger, especially if you're present. Look, if you don't want to be present and you just want to like have a cheap trick and use AI to make money and like hire a team and then just check out, well, you could do that and you can make money, but that doesn't mean you're really getting any bigger, by the way. Just because you're making money doesn't mean you're getting bigger. If you want to truly scale, I'm talking about personally, professionally, in every arena of your life, while you scale, you will be presented with new devils. Okay? It's like as soon as you grow, the problems get to a new level. All right? And it's like there's a famous story of Richard Branson from Virgin Atlantic, and he had an intern dinner, and one of his interns was just talking and talking and talking, and he just from across the table was like, Richard Branson just looked at him and said, dude, you got to get bigger problems, you're boring us, right? And that's the thing. Tony Robbins has huge problems, right? That's okay. Life is not a pursuit of comfort. The human vessel needs to be stressed. It needs it. You need healthy stress. You need something to press up against. I've been in the presence of people who have comfort everywhere around them. It's a disease. You think you want that, but when you get it, you realize there's no escape. There's no escape in this universe. The grass is always greener. It's constant. You grow, you scale, you get to the next level. It didn't quite feed you as much as you thought it would. You have new problems now. But the alternative is shrinking. The alternative is doing nothing. The alternative is not actually having that opposing force that you're working against to grow and to scale and to be bigger. And that's shrinking, and that's debilitating as well, right? Having every comfort you could possibly have is debilitating. So that's why even really successful people, they always need to find the next edge. What's the next edge for me? Literally, and just until you die, you will just be finding the next edge. There's no other way. All right, I've tried it all. Buddhism and meditating and compassion and love and all those things are amazing. But fundamentally, if you are a creature of will and a creature that has force inside of you, you are going to be up against the opposing force of the universe nonstop. All right, and I can dissect that a little more. It might be a little confusing, but I hope you guys get it. All right. Also, the bigger you get, the more important it is to learn how to actually nourish yourself. And this is something called astrality and etheric. When you have too much astrality, which is the digital energy, digital success and money and fame and whatever it is, and you don't know how to actually nourish yourself, you will burn out. You will fry your circuits. As a human being, man or woman, you must learn how to nourish yourself in 2025. Nourish your energy, nourish your jing, your kidney, you have to actually learn how to feed yourself. Okay? And the other thing is even depth and presence are becoming more and more rare assets these days. So you have to learn how to actually have presence as well, because otherwise you won't enjoy the journey. Clients come to me because they're successful, but they have no nourishment, emptiness, devoid. This is a common thing, and this is something that you can't buy. You cannot buy your way towards nourishment, because you can go to the best of the best place in the world and still be in prison inside your energetic systems and not know how to let go and not know how to enjoy and not know how to be present with your etheric. All right. So that's all I wanted to share with you today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think about this new studio setup. I got work to do, I know, here. But be present with the spectrum of strength and sensitivity and power and truth and how this applies to you. All right? Ciao.